students want to leave their math gen ed to like their final semester. It's like, just get it done so you can enjoy your later years. I don't know if he would be interested. I know they're hiring, the campus is hiring, like communication people, like for, I think like athletics specifically is hiring a communication. Yeah, he should look at the HR, I mean, if he wants to stay in the area. Mhm. Yeah. This is it though, anyway. This, this, we have a hard copy of it though, Linda.
Yes.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. Heather Del Conte, Tom Chapa,
Here?
Pam Dowd,
Here.
Lisa Glidden, Jim McKenzie,
Here.
Sean Onmock, Linda Sereno,
Here.
Zachary Demont. Would you now all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we have floor to the public. It is expected that speakers will conduct themselves in a civil manner and will be ruled out of order for any statement that constitutes a direct threat against officers, employees, or students of the school district, or that is obscene. No personal attacks will be tolerated, nor should any speaker address specific district personnel or students by name or suggestion. Questions or comments concerning matters that are not on the agenda will be taken into consideration and referred to the superintendent for appropriate action. Members of the community may comment on any matter related to district business. The board president may request a brief description of the topic the speaker plans to address. Any group or organization wishing to address the board must identify a single spokesperson. Presentations should be as brief as possible, and no speaker will be permitted to speak for longer than 3 minutes. Our first speaker is Bob Ketter. Forgive me if I got your name wrong. I don't have my glasses.
Probably my printing, not your check. Is that good? May I take the mask down? I speak. Is that good? Is that all right? Thank you. Got that?
You're good. Go right ahead.
All right. We got the
We have a
baby
little
guys
ring
here.
there.
Yeah, we have reverb.
Yep. Check, check, check.
There you go.
I'll be the guinea pig on this, all right? Check, check. All right, so my name is Bob Kester. Got it, all right. So I'm going to give you an honest confession to start off here. For 18 months, I have had, honestly, zero concerns about the health risk, severe health risk of COVID to myself. I'm here because I have a concern for the public, especially for youth. The whole concept of mandatory vaccines kills me. All right. Every day for 18 months, I've had zero concern about COVID itself to my health for many reasons. Because I've researched, because I have a good immune system, which I boost and enhance and take responsibility for. And I get to the truth on all things to the best that I can. But every day for 18 months, I have had one level or another of anxiety. Okay, wrestling at night through arguments and such. And much of that is because I'm a 40-year engineer from the nuclear industry. Okay, it's just so entrained in me to deal with defining problems, weighing out every aspect of the problems, probability, consequence, that's risk. We deal with it every day, whether it be how bald your tire is, but in the nuclear industry, obviously, it's way more intense and regulated. So the way we've handled this pandemic from day one, whether it be the level of the lockdowns, the masks, okay, now the whole concept of mandatory vax for anyone and everyone, it just goes against the grain of everything that's logical in me. I've observed so many things. For starts, early on, that safe therapeutics have been suppressed. Hydroxychloroquine, okay, ivermectin, 40, 50, 60 years of history in this world, okay, with safety levels that are off the charts, and they've been suppressed. They're not wonder drugs.
30 seconds.
But they do a lot, and they've been suppressed. There's something wrong with that. That raises your eyebrows, okay? So first thing that caught my mind when I'm looking at things and saying, what's going on, SUNY Oswego? I say, how's it going after a year, this past year? They've had 16,000, not just Oswego, SUNY, the whole state, 16,000 cases, 0 hospitalizations. How do you find that out? You look it up. You don't read the news.
I'm sorry, your time is up.
Okay. Wow.
Peggy Kane.
I'm going to be brief. For one thing, I don't understand why the website for the high school and everything is so terrible. I searched and searched. I found all old information, nothing current. It should be very easy and everything for people to look up and find out what is going on in their school instead of being frustrated, scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and trying to find information for what's going on in our schools and for our kids. Okay, one of the reasons why I'm here tonight is because I know that there has been a lot of classic novels that are being taken out of schools. I'd like to know what classic novels have been taken out of our schools and why they were taken out. And also, I'd like to know what they were been replaced with. I've read and I've seen and I've heard, so many new, books that are going in there about transgender, about sexual orientation. All of this stuff should have no place in school. I'm not paying for kids to be, getting them confused about who they are and what they represent and what they feel. That's not your place to do that. That's not our school system's place to do that. That's the family. If they have any questions about sexual orientation, it should come from them and not having them go and get all of this information and leading them into areas and everything where you have no right to do it. So I would like to know what books, a list of the books we're paying for it, we need to be able to see it. And I'd like to know what classic novels and what they were taken out for. So that's what mine is.
Mike DeHar.
Thank you. I too am concerned over the talk of mandated vaccinations. If you take a look at the VAERS system here, Europe, UK, it's the same. There's over 30,000 deaths and a number of permanent disabilities, and the list goes on and on there. Frontline doctors in the United States on July 19th sued or trying to put in an injunction to protect 18-year-old children and younger. And they also do not want to see people who have recovered from COVID to receive vaccinations either. It's actually dangerous to them. One of the things I want to just mention to you and point out, I understand there's a lot of information out there. I primarily get my information from doctors who've been treating COVID patients for the last 18 months. And there are many, many protocols, preventative, outpatient, acute, the whole smash. There's tons and tons and tons of information and resources to hit this head on. Now, children, their survival rate is 99.997, near 100% with this disease. And natural immunity is far superior to any type of immunity you would get out of a vaccine. I'm grateful that I had chicken pox as a child. Matter of fact, the baby boomers who had all the childhood diseases provided a true service to humanity because we represent a block of natural immunity, which would aid and abet the overall immunity and health of the whole world. And here we have a demographic of young children that have that gift of natural immunity, and we want to go and poison them. I will close with a particular interview that was done with Dr. Malone. Dr. Malone is the inventor of the mRNA technology. And upon a release of some Pfizer data out of Japan, they researched and looked at that data, and it was about the way the injection works in the body. He was horrified. Now, this is the inventor of mRNA. He was horrified
30
that
seconds.
the nanoparticles used in these vaccines are leaving the injection site, and they are traveling throughout the body. And after 8 hours, you see a high concentration of the nanoparticles in the blood. After 48 hours, they find out these nanoparticles end up in girls, in their ovaries, and in people in general, in their bone marrow. Now, mind you, the nanoparticles wrapped with the polymer.
I'm sorry, your time is up.
So long term, I'm worried about the health of our children. There is no long-term studies. And if we turn a blind eye as the adults in the room and have these children injected, they could be facing leukemias and other types of nasty diseases because this stuff is ending up in their bone marrow. Thank you.
Joshua Dean.
My name is Joshua Dean. My family has over 100 years protecting this country. I am dissatisfied with us having to wear masks. I have to wear a mask at work for 10 to 12 hours a day. When I try to speak for at least 60 seconds, I'm out of breath. I've been wearing this mask for 12 months. Now we're going to make it mandatory for our children to wear masks? How is that effective? It is not. You are ruining our children's confidence. You are ruining the chance for our children to learn properly. Dr. Calvin, I want to say thank you. You reached out to me last year when I was wondering about the school openings for the junior highs and the high school students. I want to say thank you. But to any of the board members that were here last year, you failed our students. Parents like me who want to know what the school program was for the high school and junior high had to wait until February to figure out when our kids were going back to school. I watched my high school son, who was a freshman last year, sit down and be very confused about what was going on with his grades. And he had a hard time trying to connect with some of his teachers. When Wednesday was supposed to be the day that he can connect with his teachers, he could not get a hold of some of them. And I'm not the only parent that feels this way. We do not want our children wearing masks all day. This is a hindrance on their learning, and this is a hindrance on their education and their health. And when it comes to the vaccination, no, my child will not get the vaccination because like that gentleman over there said, I've read the reports. And I don't know what that vaccination is going to do to my child's health 15 years down the line. That vaccination was meant for the elderly and the most vulnerable in our society. And now we're making it mandatory, and that's not right. Thank you.
Todd Heath.
Too much stuff in my hands. My name is Todd Heath. I'm here to speak only regarding the masking of our children. My children no longer go to this district thanks to your masking policies. I would like to thank you also for not returning my emails. It speaks very highly of your character. The mask that I wore up here is an N100 HEPA filter. It is a minimum requirement to filter out the virus out of the air. At about $70 a piece, with your $91 million budget that was just approved, would you please buy these for the children if you really care? An N95, though it sounds good, only filters out particles of 3 microns in size or larger. That says it right on the package. Also, if you read the package for the paper masks that you handed out, they do not filter out viruses. The virus itself is 0.1 micron in size. If you go back to what I just said about N95s, that is 0.2 microns size difference. Doesn't work. The paper mask you provided my family filter nothing and stop nothing. So how does your piece of Lycra or cotton from Victoria's Secret or Fruit of the Loom sound now? I would like my son to speak now. Speak up and go fast.
Hi, my name is Braden. I am 10. The reason I'm here is so that us kids don't have to wear masks in school. Some other reasons are because some kids have trouble breathing like me. Another reason is because kids should have the right to do whatever they want to do with their body. Thank you.
V. Willoughby.
Thank you for this time. My name is Victoria Willoughby. I'm a reverend in this town. I have helped people heal for the last 40+ years. And I'm here to tell you that what you all are practicing is a slave humiliation ritual. And since you choose to practice it, you have given up your right to have a voice to any of us who choose not to do that. So now I'm going to speak to the people with the power in the room, and that's you parents, you grandparents, you people that have let your children go to school under these conditions. In 2019, I took my scholar athlete son out of senior year, out of this high school, because it was poison yourself or else. I have kept that child's physical being pristine and his confidence high, and he was one of the fastest runners on this track team. Oswego lost something when they lost my son out of this school. But you know what? He's gotten himself trained in 5 different trades that he could do since then. He's gone so much further without this place. These people are paper tigers and gloves on an iron fist. They're trying to convince you that you need them. Find teachers that don't agree. Start your own school. Opt out these people who pretend they have power. The power is yours. Take it. I did. My son is well. He will not be damaged by any of this, come hell or high water, because the hell and the high water are both coming if you choose this for your kids.
Bud, and I'm sorry, I can't read your last name, Connor or?
My name is Bud Conner, C-O-N-N-E-R, no S. I'm here to speak to the board, the elected board, the school board here in Oswego. And might I remind you, elected board. Now that I have spoken to you, let me speak to the people who did elect you. Here, out of here, I want to ask everyone, who is in favor of mask mandates? A show of hands, please. Who is not in favor of mask mandates? Show of hands, please. First off, who is familiar with critical race theory? Show of hands, please. Of those people who are familiar with critical race theory, who is in favor of that critical race theory? Who is not in favor of critical race theory? There, I've done your job for you. Thank you.
Therese, and I'm sorry, I can't read your last name. 58 Deer Park.
Just say it again, please, Nancy.
Oh, I'm sorry, Teresa Corbin.
Yeah, I'm Teresa Carbone, and I'm here to talk about curriculum that you may be getting ready to present to our children. Critical race theory being one of the concerns that most of these people have, I'm sure. We are not a racist country. We are the most inclusive nation on earth, and children are not racist unless they are taught to be. So, critical race theory has no place in our schools. And the 1619 project that distorts history completely also does not belong in our school. The 1776 project that promotes the valor and the progress that our country has made should be presented, not a distortion like this 1619 project is. Doesn't belong in our school, neither does critical race theory. And with the other woman that spoke about the books that have been taken off the shelf, yes, I think every parent needs to know what has been replacing it and what your curriculum for these children will involve.
That was our last speaker, Dr. Calvin. We have a. Sure, can you just state your name, address, and phone number?
Tricia Lorenz. 312.
Phone number?
Point of order.
Just wanted to let you know that we definitely don't do this, but we'll allow because the reason to be is come and sign up. So if the two of you want to speak, we'll do that, but that's it. You're welcome.
Thank you for your time. Thank you. I'm here with my husband, Jay Lorenz, and we are both products of the public school system. We were hoping to do the same for our daughter because we're good humans and we want what's best for her. I took it upon myself to go ahead and, as a kindergartner, she's new, I went to the website and she would be going to Kingsford. So I immediately went to the website. I looked up the parent, it's called Parent and Student Handbook. So it's not the Student Board of Education, it's not the student teacher, it's not the student health director, it's Student and Parent Handbook. And I didn't get past the first page. And I want to read what the first page was. Should only take a second. I'm sure it's in all the handbooks, but here it is. At the top it says, the Regents' Bill of Rights for Children. Underneath, an education charter for the decade of the child. And it's 10 listed options, which I consider 10 commandments, essentially. 1, all children have the right to a healthy, secure, nurturing infancy and early childhood. 2, all children have the right to live in circumstances which permit healthy intellectual, emotional, physical, and moral development. They will not get that with a mask. Number 3, all children have the right to a free, sound, basic education. That does not include CRT. Number 4, each child has the right to an education appropriate for his or her individual needs. Number 5, all children have the right to an education which respects their culture, race, socioeconomic background, and the language of their home. 6, all children have the right to schools and educational programs which are effective. I'm going to say that again, effective. A mask will not do that. Number 7, all children have the right to educational programs which prepare them for jobs, for college, for responsible family
30
life
seconds
and for
remaining.
citizenship in a self-governing society. Self-governing society. Number 8, all children have the right to pursue their education without fear. Number 9, all children have the right to pursue the resources needed to secure their educational rights. Number 10, all children are entitled to an education which involves responsibilities as well as rights.
Your time has expired.
Please feel free to read it.
Thank you very much for allowing me to speak on late notice. My wife, Sandy, and I are moving here from Fayetteville, Manlius. Very happy to be moving in about 2 weeks. We were very engaged in Fayetteville, Manlius in the school board in learning sort of the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Project and how they're going to implement that. The superintendent, Craig Tice, in a committee meeting that I attended, held up a book called 5 Practices for Equity-Focused School Leadership, I think. And I bought the book, I read it 3 times, I made comments in the last meeting. I'm very sort of immersed in this topic, and I'm curious about what the board intends to do, and I'm approaching respectfully and hopefully in a friendly manner, but I'm curious about what the board intends to do, what you're thinking about in terms of philosophy and what policies you might do. Is there some text like that you're utilizing? Apparently that's a widespread utilized text. And basically the DEI, they denied that it had anything to do with CRT, but I don't believe that that is the case, that there's great commonality between the two. I'm very anti-racist, but there are other issues there, and if this comes out in coming months, then I'll be back to talk and express it. So I'm interested to hear, if now or some other time, what's the approach from you, okay?
I just wanted to say a couple of things. One is we don't teach critical race theory in the school. We don't. I know there's a hot button issue. I know it's pressed. I know you hear it all the time, but we don't teach it here, okay? Mm-hmm.
I see a man or a woman's worth based on their personality, and if they respect me. I want my son to grow up the same way. And if I start hearing the word equity, you know I'm going to protest right in front of your house. Because you are elected.
Okay.
And not Albany or not.
Great.
But us.
Thank you. The first thing I want to say was that. We don't teach that. Second, there's no mandated vaccine requirements. Not with us, okay? There are none that are with us, okay? I just want you to understand that. That's not, I know it's a buzzword, I know it's out there, people are here, and I know people are afraid of that, but that's not what we're doing, and we're not doing that here, okay? And thirdly, to my knowledge, to our knowledge, no books have been removed from our shelves. Now, if you want to find out what the books, we've got tons of books tons of books in here, and those lists could be provided, I think, for you, and you feel better with that. But no books have been removed from the shelves. So I appreciate everyone's perspective, and I appreciate people coming in here, but I want to make sure that you understand from our vantage point that these things we don't do. Okay? All right. That's fine. Thank you. Okay? And I'm sorry, normally we don't even respond during this time, but I understand everybody's excited and wants that response, so I try to do that, but we're going to move on now. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Good evening, board. We've been planning and working on our reopening, and that really is the subject that I'd like to speak with you all about tonight. Because I want to be able to see all of your faces and make sure I don't miss questions, I'm going to sit here and give the presentation if that's all right with you all, okay? Just one second. So in front of you tonight, I have put a copy of the PowerPoint just in case I know our screens are a little bit all in different places, but I wanted to make sure you had that tonight, all right? So we have a number of things that we've been working on. I would start by saying that it's been a very busy time. The last year and a half have just been busy for everybody, I believe. Before the school year ended, our district was busy working on what would the next year look like. We've had people who've shared with us, have you guys been doing a lot? Yes, we have. Actually, if you recall, before the year ended, we actually had a parent forum, a whole community forum, where we had quite a few people in and talking with us about what our plans were for the next year and trying to get feedback from them. It was around the time that we were talking about bringing more students back to school. And we got a lot of feedback from our community, and we heard loud and clear that they wanted kids to be in person wherever possible. We heard also about health and safety and social and emotional well-being, and so some of the things that you'll hear tonight is coming from that work that we did before the year was out, and then work that we've been just working on since the year ended. As we created and put together our new year reopening plan, we had some guiding principles. The first principle was that the district would ensure safe learning and working environments for our entire learning community. Nothing is more important to us than making sure that our students and staff are safe. Our entire learning community, we want to make sure that we secure their health and safety. The second guiding principle was that the district would ensure all students receive instruction that meets state, federal standards, and have the necessary supports in place, which included access to technology and connectivity, meaning we would make sure every child would have a Chromebook available to them. Wi-Fi, if they didn't have Wi-Fi at home, we wanted to make sure they had that. Our programs we wanted to make sure had social and emotional wellness and health supports included. And then we also wanted to make sure that we had appropriate services and or supports needed to meet the needs of students with disabilities as well, or students with any kind of support that they needed outside of the general education supports. And one of the other guiding principles that we had was that we would make sure that we would provide training, that we provide time and support and flexibility wherever possible for our staff to be able to prepare for our students and for the next year, and in order to also make sure that we had a successful reopening. And then our other guiding principle was that the district would provide proactive, clear communication, and that included translations to all families and staff. We have a number of folks who speak different languages in our district. We wanted to make sure that everybody was able to have access to the messages that we were sending out to our community. So those were the guiding principles that we utilized in our planning process. Now, also this year, we wanted to make sure that we had all of the relevant information as we were kind of moving forward. So we have been utilizing the New York State Department of Health guidance from last school year, and also over the summer there was some guidance that was issued around a number of items, and we've been using that to help guide our plan. Just this past week, the New York State Department of Education issued health and safety guidance, and we've been utilizing that, and also any guidance that we got from them from the year before. We have been speaking consistently. In fact, I spent time on the phone this morning with our medical director going through a number of items, just wanting to make sure that we were getting his advice. By the way, he is, unfortunately wasn't able to be here this evening, but has said that he will be here at our next meeting. He sent several items, but couldn't be here today. The Oswego County Department of Health, any guidance that they have issued, we have been utilizing that. Any advice from them? We actually met with the Department of Health a week ago. When I say we, me and all of my colleagues from every district in our county, we all met together with the health department just to make sure that we had some ideas from them in terms of what they'd like to see done in schools. And it's important to note that with the guidance that has been given out, they have all, wherever it's from, if you look in the documents and whatever else have you, they all say that certainly school districts can make their own choices. What they have provided for us is guidance. It's not a requirement, but certainly something that we should definitely take into account as we kind of move forward. So what has occurred, just to share, we were told before the year was out, we meaning districts, that the governor was going to provide us with guidance for the year. All last year, he kind of basically told us what we could or couldn't do. So we had said, all right, well, if we have to wait, then we'll wait. After months of waiting, we learned that there would be no guidance provided. The New York State Commissioner, Dr. Betty Rosa, who you see there, she advocated strongly for districts to receive this guidance. And after hearing that there would be no guidance, she still has kind of pushed back and said something needs to be out there for the districts. The New York State Department of Health encouraged districts, after hearing from the governor, to utilize the CDC's guidance to reach out also to their local, for us to reach out to our local departments of health for guidance, because they would not be issuing any guidance. They also, again, told us, reach out to your local departments of health. We reached out to our local departments of health as districts, and we were told they weren't going to be providing guidance, so they encouraged us to reach out to our own medical directors for information. The incoming governor, she's not in place yet, but she has already shared that she is going to be, one of the first things that she plans to do is ensure masking in local places, but also schools. And I know that some may not be okay with that, but just want to share that that has come out. That was in the media last week, and it's in the media today. The New York State Department of Education issued guidance finally for districts on August 13th, 2021. So all of those things have been occurring. So we do have some concerns. What are the concerns? As we were approaching this planning process, we know several weeks ago we got some data from the Oswego County Health Department, and we were told that of the children who are eligible to receive vaccinations, 14.6% have received the vaccinations, basically. We've been told that the Delta variant is on the rise in the county. And as evidence of the rise in cases and of the variant, the district, our county, has now been placed on a federal list as a high transmission rate. We were in the orange zone, and there are 4 categories. We were in the orange zone about a week ago, and maybe 2 days or 3 days after hearing we were in the orange zone, we were notified that we're now in the red zone. And that's pretty significant because it says that you're in a location that has one of the highest transmission rates across the country. So that's something that we've just heard, and we're just kind of working through right now. In terms of our response, again, we met with our county health officials about this information. We've reviewed suggestions and guidance from the CDC, the New York State Department of Education, the American Association for Pediatrics. We've consulted with our medical directors and other school districts, and we've created and shared components of our plan with the community, which we'll go over now and just kind of talk with you about. Okay? Everybody okay? All right. So here's our plan. So we have shared this information in the community. We wanted to make sure we got as much out to the community as we can. So we got some information out there last week. We'll continue to provide information every week. This week I'll have another note going out before Friday to share with parents new information. We just want to keep everyone in the loop as to what we're thinking. So there's some considerations that we put into place with our plan. The first consideration is in-person learning. So what we'd like to see this year and what we've been planning for is all K through 12 students attending school in person for in-person instruction 5 days a week, 5 full days, everybody in school. And we've said that unless there is a documented medical reason that prevents children from doing so. All parents who have a child with a documented reason have been asked to contact their principals and to inform them. There's also a survey online that we're asking parents to fill out. And in those surveys, we're asking them for information that might prevent children from schools coming into school for in-person learning. And we've heard already from some of our parents, and there are some true reasons for people not being able to be back in place. And we understand that, and we will work with those parents. Once the information is received, we are completing right away a medical review to determine the most appropriate program for the child. And that might be a remote or virtual learning process or tutorial support. Whatever is going to meet the child's needs, that's what we're prepared to do. I'd like to share that, we are already planning now for, internal supports for K through 8 students who may fall into this category. We believe that we can meet those needs. The 9 through 12 program is a little bit more challenging because we have hundreds of courses that we're offering. Kids are kind of, there's so many courses, it's hard unless you have almost basically another staff who can teach that, to teach the different courses that we're offering. So there are some alternatives available in those cases. One is we could try to build some things internally, which would cause some challenges. Or there is a program called Synergy that it's a program offered right here in our region through BOCES. On your table board, I did put together a little packet for you. And this kind of just basically tells about the online program. The students would get a teacher, a city BOCES teacher, who would be assigned, a series of teachers, excuse me, who would be assigned to them each day. They'd have a schedule like they normally would here, and they would just take their classes online. There is a cost to that program. It's $11,500 per student is the tuition. That tuition can be paid for one of two ways. So you can pay for it through grant monies, or you pay for it outright. However, in the next school year, the tuition is actually reimbursed to the district at its reimbursable rate, which is basically 85% or more. So the cost for the child going there is actually, it's around $1,720 plus, basically, which is a lot lower than what we pay per pupil per year here. So that is a consideration, and board, certainly your feedback on that is important. So I'll stop there. First consideration. Your thoughts about that? Any thoughts? Everybody okay? Go ahead.
So, oh, sorry, Pam, did you have a? Just to, I know when we saw the draft of this,
Yes.
so to clarify too, if a class or students in a class had to go into quarantine,
Yes.
we would be able to provide their education internally, and they wouldn't have to then have a new set of teachers with
Correct.
Synergy?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
So later in the piece here that I'll share, we'll talk a little bit about quarantining. And the plan is, so we get into the school year and a class becomes, or certain students become quarantined. In that case, what we'll do is we'll have kids use their Chromebooks to come on, and they can live stream into the classroom, right? Just turn it on, watch the classroom, and just kind of continue to participate that way, right? During the quarantine period. If the whole classroom has to quarantine or an entire school has to be shut down, our emergency plan is that the whole school or the entire classroom will go to remote learning, right? So the teacher will be prepared to just revert in that way, basically. So no, they would not, to answer your question, they would not have to go from a different teacher to another program, or that would be the plan. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks, yeah, and I definitely appreciate the 5 days a week back in class.
Absolutely. Pam?
Yes, thank you. This is for the high school, 9 through 12 students that for a medical reason
Yes, ma'am.
cannot attend
Yes, ma'am.
in person.
Yes, yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts or concerns at all?
My only concern was on the financial end of it. Even though we're reimbursed for it, the monies that are in the budget already now are allocated for the percentage per student,
Yes,
correct?
yes.
So we'd still be paying it, and this would be indeed an additional cost than in the net. But the net cost would be that $1,700 versus the full charge of $11,000.
Yes, you would have to. You'd have to take it. We'd have to take money from our budget to cover that. That wasn't budgeted for, basically. So we'd have to either look at, reserves or some other area to kind of take that from. Or the other option is, so we have, the grant money that's come in from the state and the federal government, so you could take from there. But when you take from there, it's coming out at the regular cost, the regular 11, because you can't double dip. Like you can't use a grant and then get it reimbursed. Does that make sense? Right? So it's really kind of one or the other, and the 11,000 adds up if you're taking it out of the grant pretty quickly. So all the kind of things that we've talked about doing would be a real significant challenge. Nancy, did I miss anything? No. Okay. Does that answer your question, Tom?
Yeah. I don't know if now will be the time just to read Heather's
Sure.
statement. I just wanted to read the two board members that aren't here this evening. I just wanted to read the email that they had sent around. We'd seen this, but just so everybody knows and their perspective is represented. And this is from Heather Del Conte. As far as recommendations from federal health organizations, although useful, they use broad statistical data that do not consider local circumstances, like our low vaccine compliance rate, when making recommendations. Equally poignant for guiding policy is local anecdotal information. Where I was once a staunch critic of online education, I have now heard from parents whose children found success last year because they didn't have to fight negative social pressures and feel unsafe while also attempting to tackle academic pressures. One mom was crying as she described how her son finally liked school and was excited to learn. If we learn anything from last year, it is that we need to be prepared for the worst and be as flexible with individual circumstances and need as possible. This includes having a robust virtual program for the handful of children who need it, in addition to being prepared to accommodate quarantine scenarios of all shapes and sizes at all grade levels. And that's Heather's. I just wanted to make sure we got that. And from Sean Onmacht, I agree that we need to be in person 5 days a week. I also agree that the virtual option should only be offered to those who have medical conditions that prevent them from attending in person. Additionally, I feel students should be unmasked like Central Square in Baldwinsville. Oh, you'll like the next part then. The largest two districts closest to Oswego. I realize neighboring districts such as Fulton, Phoenix, Auburn are choosing to be masked. I couldn't find any guidance from Liverpool, CNS, Hannibal, and Mexico, but I'm continuing to do research. Lastly, my stance on the mask could easily change in the 4 weeks leading up to the school year if COVID spikes in the district increased. And he referenced Central Square, who originally said they would give masks as an option, but since we went to the high level, have gone to masks completely.
Correct.
So I just want to just state that all the way around.
The other thing too,
That's right, guys. Excuse me, excuse me. If you can't be quiet, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. I understand, and I understand those concerns, but we need to move on with this. Thank you.
thank you, Tom. Just also wanted to mention too that today in the paper, the Onondaga supervisor was talking about masking in schools, and he has recommended for all the schools that they do that. I know Baldwinsville is in that zone, in that area. I've not heard as to whether or not they've changed their mind, but I did hear in the paper, I saw today in the paper that there was an article around this as well. So, okay.
So I'll just chime in here real quick. I'm glad you put this as number one. Because I do believe that there is nothing more valuable than students being with their peers, learning together in the way that we traditionally have had. And yes, there may be some people that have a medical reason, and they should absolutely be accommodated. But the fact that we're doing a plan around in-person 5 days a week is, I think, where everybody should be focused on as our ultimate objective. And when we look at through all the other considerations and all of the other things that have been discussed here so far, I get it. I understand there are differences of opinion out there. All right? History is the thing that really tells what is correct and not, and until they invent that crystal ball, we go with what we think is best, and there will always be differences. But the rest of this plan, I would say, is looking at trying to make number one here, the number one priority. And I think anybody, including my two kids who have gone through virtual learning and hybrid learning, this is the way it should be. So I'm thankful that we're starting here, because this is what everything else is built on, and we need to understand that.
Thank you. Linda, did you want to say something? I'm sorry.
I was just thinking that everything you said, Jim, you know, I've been sitting here thinking the same thing. We need to get these children back in school. And at this point, my belief is that unless they have a medical reason not to be in school. All children should be in school. Social learning is a big thing for all of them.
So we kind of have two options. We can go with this, or we can kind of go back to kind of what we were doing last school year, which is offering something different. I guess my question is, just to be clear, is the board good with moving forward in this way? And if so, I guess we would just need to see hands, making sure Pam's that way, Jim, Linda,
5 days a week.
yes, Tom, yes, Lisa, yes. Okay, all right, great. So we'll move forward. We have consensus from the board.
I will say, just to be fair, just to process, the point of today is to spell out, to hear comments, to be able to ask questions and get as much information out as possible. But then we have a meeting in 8 days.
Yes.
Right, where we're going to come back and we're going to look to solidify some of these things, because I'm sure further information will come in. I know I like to think about totality, as I move through things. So, we can do, I think it's good to do straw polls as we go throughout, but we're still looking for the full board to meet a week from tomorrow.
Yes, that's correct. Okay. All right, second consideration in the plan is around school schedules. And what we are looking for at this time is that all schools will return to their normal operating schedule this school year. For secondary schools, that means we'll start them right at 7:30 till 2:30. All elementary schools will start at 8:45 and end by 3:30. Any questions or feedback on that at all, board?
So yeah, I had one thing on this. I'm not sure when OMS and OHS traditionally started. Was it not staggered, or was it at?
No,
They've
they were
always been
both,
at the
they're
same
both
time?
at 7:30.
So one thing I would ask that we look into is the possibility of staggering OMS and OHS if possible. There may be some parents who would prefer to transport their children rather than do busing. And if they have an elementary and an older kid, that's easy. 8:45, 7:30, that's pretty good. But if they've got a middle schooler and high schooler, having both times at 7:30 may be a little difficult for them. So if they were staggered even by 10 minutes, that might be able to help some of those parents who choose to transport their students in themselves. May not be feasible, but it's
Right.
just something I thought of.
Right. So the problem is that as you do that, it starts several of your elementary schools a little bit later. So it just kind of moves things up and down. Also, there are contractual things that are included with that as well that we'd have to go back and renegotiate. It's not, you understand what I'm saying? We have to go back and kind of talk that through. So the start time, so you want to tell me again? I want to make sure we begin. I think it's, the kids can start getting there at 7:30. Tell me about the start time with OMS and the middle, and the high school.
So the start time for the middle school and high school is at 7:30, but that's the first bell when you're supposed to be in class. Or the final bell. So the first bell goes off at 7:25. Kids are usually let in the building between 7:15 and 7:20.
Right.
Traditionally. So they have time to get a breakfast, get to their lockers, run an errand before if they need to. Usually, I mean, it's a little tight between OHS and OMS, but most of the time parents would typically drop off their child here at the high school because they're a little bit more responsible. They can come in the building at 7:15, 7:20, and then they would drive out to the middle school and their student would get there on time.
Yeah. Generally, when I think about our data, we haven't had difficulty with that happening. Parents have just kind of worked it out in the way that she's described. So I think we could still work through it well. Our parents have been pretty good about this all along. But if we were to start OMS at one time, high school at one time, again, it just throws off schedules for multiple schools. At least 2 or 3 buildings would have to start later than what would be needed. That would be the difficulty.
And it would also interfere after school for after-school activities.
Correct.
Because some middle schoolers participate, high school and middle school can participate together. And usually there's a bus going from one school to the other. It would, it would really wreak havoc, 10 or 15 minutes.
Okay, no, that's fine. Just as long as we can help communicate that to people about, the doors being
Absolutely.
open and stuff like that.
Sure, can do.
It's new to me. I just always put my kid on the bus.
Okay. So with that said, thanks for the feedback, Jim.
Yeah.
Board, are we okay with this or any other comments? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm fine with this for next year. I would just like to put out there again that, like, for future,
Yeah.
there is so much research that shows that secondary school kids will do so much better if they can start later. So at some point in time, if we can look into flipping when the elementary schools, as my, 9-year-old today is always up very, very early, but the 11-year-old is
Yes.
till 2 now.
I do remember you mentioning that in the last school year, and certainly something that is on our mind. There's some studying that we have to do with that, and some surveying of parents to see kind of how they would do with that. The biggest issue in most districts who have done it is it's the flip, right? So the high schoolers who usually help with, providing childcare and support at home after the hours, they're not there when the younger child gets home. So that's the flip, and then we'd have to kind of certainly just talk with parents and see where they're at with that. There is great evidence that shows that later start times for older children does support them quite well. So I would agree with you. Yes, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I know Ithaca went to that, to a later start time for the high school at least. And I know, though the superintendent wouldn't draw a direct correlation, but graduation rates were increasing, performance and performance rates were increasing with the later start time. So it's something to look at.
Thanks for the feedback, Lisa. I appreciate it. Board, are you good with this start and time? Okay, all right. We're going to go to number 3. That's with special education and student services. What our plan is to offer all special education, English language learner, academic intervention, 504 plans, any accommodations in person for our students. If there are children who are unable to receive the program in person, then we'll work with them virtually and do everything we can to support them virtually. And we will follow through with IEPs, AIS plans, student support service plans, whatever they are, we will do that. The other caveat is with respect to preschool on Committee on Education and special education meetings, what we would like to do this year is in order to ensure the health and safety of our kids and also the staff and the numerous people who have to be at those meetings, we'd like to continue to hold meetings virtually throughout the year, and when we're able to bring more back in person, we will work to do that as well. Okay? Everybody okay with that? All right. Our 4th consideration is around technology, and we will continue to have technology supports in place for children. All children will receive a device. All kids can get a Wi-Fi mobile hotspot if you need one. I have to just let us know, and we'll work with you. Technology will be distributed to all kids at the beginning of the school year, and technology will be utilized during an emergency shutdown as well. So you heard me talk earlier about, if there's an emergency shutdown, kids will go remote or virtual. So the whole school shutdown or whole classroom, we plan to move remotely or virtually in those situations. If there's a quarantine period, our goal at this time is to just go live stream so that kids can continue to stay focused in terms of what's happening with the classroom. If children truly are sick, right, during the quarantine, we're not going to expect them to be on if they're really ill, right? But if they can be on, sometimes kids are quarantined and they don't even know that, they don't have any symptoms. So, in those cases, we will allow the children to be on live stream. Any questions or concerns about that? Everybody good? Everybody great. All right. The next one is with extracurricular activities. We're going to do our best to offer every extracurricular club and intramural programs that we can. School administrators are going to be reaching out to parents and letting them know when things will be offered. Now, but we also are making sure that all clubs and intramural program offerings we want people to know that they're subject to health conditions with respect to COVID-19. So if there are, things that are high risk that we may have a club on, we may not be able to offer that. And we will let parents know that right up front, especially given some of the concerns that we're facing now with the Delta variant. Okay? Any concerns on that? Everybody good? Transportation. We're going to continue to provide transportation this year. There is a change. There is no requirement for social distancing on the bus. However, there is a requirement that everybody has a mask on. There's a lot of information out there that shows that keeping the mask on when transporting is really the best thing. So people are riding the trains, the planes, and other automobiles, and they have their mask on, and they've been okay. We will ask kids to take temperatures when they get on the buses. We'll have sanitizer stuff available as well where needed. And we're going to make every effort to sit relatives and or members of the same household together when they get on the bus as well, okay? Just to keep in mind, we will not be packing the buses, right? I just want to be clear on that. We don't do that now, actually, which is great. We haven't done that in the past. But we're going to really make sure that we want to be clear, we're not going to be packing the buses. So some of the children who are listed in our bus list don't even ride the buses, but we still prepare for them and plan for them. But those that we know aren't going to be riding, that will help us. So we've put out a survey for our parents, and we've asked them to fill out the survey so that we can make sure we have appropriate numbers. We'll have a little wiggle room in the bus, but we won't be packing the buses, but we will get as many people as we can on a bus. Does that make sense, everybody? Are we good with that transportation piece? Everybody good? Okay. Masking. So, the CDC, the New York State Department of Education this week, the American Academy of Pediatrics, our district's medical director, all of the guidance that we have received have said that we should have masking for children while they are indoors and for staff. Our plan at this time is to mask when folks are indoors. When outdoors, students, staff, and visitors will not be required to mask. We will be providing students with breaks throughout the school day. And when kids are outside, by the way, we're going to be encouraging them still to socially distance. I know they're outside and they're getting their break, but they really should continue to socially distance. Should a student have a medical need that prevents them from wearing a mask, we're going to continue to do what we did last year. All the parent or guardian needs to do is let the school know. A referral will be made to the medical director, and he will look to see what could be utilized as an alternative if there is a medical need for that particular child. I would say Dr. Morgan did a great job last year with looking at alternatives for kids, and so we'll continue in that way this year. But we are looking to move forward with masking, and when things get better, we will gradually release. Does that make sense? Everybody okay with that, board? Everybody good? Social distancing. The district will continue to maintain the current CDC, New York State Department of Education, and the New York State Department of Health recommendations for social distancing. This involves 3 feet social distancing in classrooms where possible, and then 6 feet social distancing in cafeterias, in music spaces, for vocal and instrumental classes, and also during our physical education, with any aerobic kinds of activities that kids are involved in. Okay. Everybody okay? All right. Consideration 9, cleaning and sanitation. We're going to continue to follow all of the CDC and New York State Department of Health cleaning and sanitation protocols. Our goal is to maintain a very clean and well-sanitized learning environment throughout the year. So every one of the protocols that are identified in our plan, we will be following. Everyone okay with that? All right. Consideration 10 deals with food and nutrition services. The district will continue to provide free breakfast and lunch. So, there is a requirement across the state that says we have to feed all children. We're in the middle of a pandemic. And we will do just as that requirement states that we should do. That is at no cost. Well, it's a cost to the district, but not cost to the families. Students will be socially distanced, by the way, when they're eating meals in the cafeteria or in their classroom by 6 feet. And then meals will continue to be delivered to students who are unable to attend. If we have kids who can't attend for whatever reason, we do deliver foods, we deliver meals. We'll continue to do that as well. Okay. Any questions or concerns? Everybody good?
Will elementary be eating in the cafeterias this year or classrooms?
So it'll be a mixture, right? It depends on the number of kids in the class. It depends on how many are in the cafeteria at a time. We will have some classes where half the class will be in the cafeteria and half will possibly be in the classroom. So it's a mixture this year. Yeah, last year we were able to kind of get pretty much most of who we wanted in the cafeteria we could or in the room, but we have more kids coming back now. Everybody's kind of back, so it'll be a little bit different. Yes, I got you. Awesome. Okay. Everybody good with that? Okay. All right, and then consideration number 11 is screening, monitoring, and temperature checks. We're going to continue to take temperatures when anyone comes into the buildings. When kids get on buses, when they come to school, we will do a temperature check. With respect to the screening, we're only going to ask for that to be 1 day a week, which is on Monday. So, we've talked to our doctor about the screening, and in the New York State Department of Ed's guidance, they're saying, you don't have to do screening. You don't even have to do temperature checks anymore, basically. As I talked with our medical director, he shared with me that the screening piece, a lot of people just aren't honest on it. Even when they come to his office, sometimes people aren't honest, right? However, doing that screening gives you a little bit of a sense maybe of what may be going on or not going on in the district. It gives you a little bit of something. It may not all be accurate, but it gives you something. So we're going to do once a week on Mondays. Parents should just fill out a screening form. That'll give us some information about what happened over the weekend, how kids are doing before they come back, and that'll keep us a little bit with some data that's there as opposed to absolutely nothing. So we're going to do that. It's a change. Parents won't have to do it every morning, just once a week, and the temperature checks also there. We will evaluate the screening as the year goes along and see how we're doing with that. Everybody okay with that, board? Everybody good? All right. Consideration 12 involves social and emotional supports for students. We will make sure that there is staff in place to provide social and emotional learning. In some of our grants that we are now working through, those new federal grants, you saw that we listed counselors and social workers. So we'll have some additional counselors, social workers, home and family liaisons. We have mental health counselors in place, Farnham counselors who help with some of the substance abuse. So we have a whole plethora of supports in addition to taught lessons to support kids' social and emotional development. We heard a lot from our community in our recent survey that this was one of the top things that they wanted, so we have made sure that that's in place. Everybody okay with that? Good? Okay. All right. Now, the number 13 consideration is around athletics. So, the New York State Public Association, Athletics Association has determined that all teams and all practices and contacts can happen throughout the year. But since they put that original statement out, there's been some changes that have come out. So it should be noted that athletic health-related risk will be evaluated throughout the year and is subject to change due to COVID-19. So the CDC and the New York State Department of Education have both now issued guidance that says basically whenever you are in a different kind of a zone, there are some things that need to be done. So for example, when you are in blue, yellow, orange, or red, there are some considerations that should be done for students, for teachers, when you have high-risk sports and activities, when you have low and immediate risk. The most interesting piece on this one is around the high-risk sports. So they are now saying, listen, high-risk sports, which include hockey, football, wrestling, volleyball, when you're identified as high transmission zone, really what they're recommending strongly is that you cancel or hold high-risk sports and extracurricular activities virtually to protect in-person learning. That in-person learning is the biggest thing, unless all participants are fully vaccinated. If you go into the orange zone, the recommendation is that you do screening testing for high-risk sports and extracurricular activities twice per week for participants who are not fully vaccinated. So there are some different things here than what we've been used to seeing before, but really it's based upon health and safety concerns, basically. So some things to think about. Questions or your thoughts, feedback on this? Please, Dr. Glidden, go right ahead.
So I know last year we had talked about, we've had a handful of testing clinics and we reached out to other organizations. Do we have a plan for regular testing then?
Yes. So recently there was some funds that were shared with the county. The federal government gave the county, I believe, I know it's over $3.8 million. The county did accept the funds, and the funds were to be used specifically for all of the schools in the county for testing. There wasn't a lot of money last year, but this was supposed to be used specifically for testing. So just to be clear, because we had some people post some things on Facebook, the district has not received those funds in our hands at all. What has occurred is that the county has the funds. That's where they went to. Now, what is going to be occurring, we met last week about this, is our BOCES, city BOCES, is actually going to work with the county to create and kind of work through a plan. So they're going to get tests, a variety of type of tests. So there's pool testing available. There's the, quick rapid tests that are available. And then they will distribute those to the local school district, and the school district staff who are in place, the nursing staff, would be working together with Oswego Health to get the testing done. That's the number one plan. The second plan is we would just have local providers from Oswego Health, in our case, just do all the testing, and the district doesn't have really any hands-on with respect to that. So they're working that out right now. They're looking at what those costs would be to make sure that kids would have testing available if they'd like to have that throughout the year, school districts as well. Does that answer your question? No? Right? So that's what we're working on, and hopefully within the next week or so, we'll have more clarification. When we come back at our next meeting, we can share that with you. But, these are the changes that are right now that have come. I will share with you that I did talk with our medical director about those changes, and he was in agreement with that we should follow through with the recommendations from the CDC and from the Department of Education, especially when it comes to high transmission. And what that means is, can we still do sports? Well, yeah, we could, but in order to do it, we have to encourage our participants to, it says all participants need to be fully vaccinated. So that's certainly something that is a consideration that we need to work through and think through that has just come to us. Like he, I am recommending that we do follow through with the guidance. Your thoughts on that, Ford? Want to give anybody else a time or thought?
Well, you're talking high-risk sports.
High-risk sports.
They're really our winter session. So we'll discuss it then.
And it's not every sport, it's just those high-risk ones. Tom, you want to say something, sir? Oh, I'm sorry, just Lisa?
Got to say except football.
Yeah.
It's something we'll have to address.
We'll address it a week from tomorrow.
Yeah.
Everybody good? Any other comments from anybody? Okay.
We can address it a week from tomorrow. Just practices start on Monday, week today, so just pointing that out.
Right. Yeah, but yes, we can address it whenever you wish to. But you want to say something?
Well, I'm just currently, what procedure are they using now? Are they masking? Are they, if we're going to, Jim, when did you say practice start?
It starts a week from today, August 23rd, for all sports.
Okay. So we'll have to resolve it before then.
Right. I mean, so we can hold the, we can say, put a hold on the practice for right now to be on the safe side, or we can, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead, tell me your
I
thought.
don't want to do that to them. Can we ask them to just use their masks for the first practice till we discuss it Tuesday?
Yes, we could. We could.
I don't want to hold up their practice.
Whatever policy, what do we utilize during the spring football? Any type of?
I think they were masked
We asked
during
people to wear
practice.
masks.
So let's utilize that.
And they filled out their questionnaire about if they've had any symptoms. Can we just stay with that and let them get their practice started?
We can do that. That's not
Please.
something that's off the table. We can certainly do that. Yes.
Yeah, they had a successful season using masks, and I'm not, let's let them start their practice, and we'll discuss it in our meeting Tuesday.
So I would say, again, guidance versus requirement. But we do have multiple people or entities that are sharing this guidance with us. Can we take some time to think about it? I think that's a good thing to do. So board, you want to take some time? We have a meeting on Tuesday, and we can come back and have that conversation for sure. But I just want to share with you where we're at right now. Okay? Does that sound good to everybody? Okay. All right. Awesome. So that's where we're at with that. Some additional things we need to think about is that, keep in mind from the guidance, it talks about setting of the sporting events or activities, making sure that kids are careful with respect to physical closeness, number of people that are involved, right? So throughout the year, we'll need to think about the risk of spread based upon how many spectators we have, staff who are in certain locations, the number of athletes that are involved, the level of intensity of activity, the risk of COVID-19 spread increases with the intensity of the sport. how much time is involved in whatever event or contest or practice that we hold. The presence of people more likely to develop severe illness, and then the other consideration that has been shared with us is that we should think about spectators for events, basically. I think at our next board meeting, to also assist us, we'll have our medical doctor with us too, and I think that will help us as well too. Does that sound good to the board? Okay, all right. All right, the next consideration is for testing. Recently, the county, well, I just talked about this, what happened with the county with respect to testing. Our plan is to work with the city BOCES, and if it's Oswego Health or if it's us, we will certainly work together to get whatever testing we need done. I just wanted to be clear, no student will be tested without permission from their parent or guardian. There was some stuff again on Facebook, on our page that someone had posted, saying that we were going to test kids without permission of parents, and that's just totally untrue. There is no plan for that. That is false. Okay? So whatever testing we do, parent permission will be required. All right, next consideration is around contact tracing and case reporting. We will continue to contact trace and work with the health department around that. We have a hotline that has been in place now for over a year. We'll continue that hotline. And as we receive cases or information around cases, we will post that information. Different this year, we'll have a web page where we'll post that information at, as opposed to sending so many emails out to the community every day whenever we get a case. You can just go right to the website. You can see how many cases that we have. We did hear from several of our parents, many of our parents, it's a bit much every day. Sometimes it's a lot, sometimes not so lot. So we're going to put that in a different place this year. We don't know yet if we're going to be required by the health department to put information into an area that they have their own online report card. Everything's kind of at a standstill right now until the new governor gets in place. Okay. Everybody good with this consideration? All right, so some additional things that we're going to actually promote is we are going to promote vaccinations wherever we can for those who want them. Those who don't, we're okay. Consistent and correct uses of masks, physical and social distancing, screening, testing to promptly identify cases, clusters, and outbreaks. Ventilation, we do have the MERV 5 systems in place to make sure that we have proper ventilations. Is it MERV 5 or 7? I can't remember. I think is it 9? 9. We have MERV 9, excuse me, in place. It's in our plan, if I remember correctly, too. We will encourage hand washing and respiratory etiquette. Staying home when people are sick and getting tested. Contact tracing in combination with isolation and quarantining, and cleaning and disinfection. Our 16th consideration is the emergency shutdown, and I think I've talked about this already. Again, whenever a classroom or a school, depending upon the health and safety risk or an assessment, whenever it's a classroom that kind of has some quarantining, we will work with the live streamed instruction. If it's a whole school, or an entire classroom that's been quarantined, that's when we'll go to a remote virtual process, right? Whenever there's a shutdown or an issue like that, we will share that information with our parents and guardians for sure. Absolutely, via Parent Square. Okay. All right. So that's where we're at right now in terms of our plan. A lot of information. Open to your feedback or any questions you might have tonight, board.
I have a question. Noticing tonight that we had some people that were unmasked and came in and didn't follow the protocol. I'm concerned about students who may come into our buildings and refuse to wear a mask. What will be the follow-up on that?
Sure. So our principals and our assistant principals did a really great job with this last year. They reached out right away to parents, explained to them what our expectations were, and really kind of said, listen, they got to put them on. This isn't really an option here. I'm happy to say that I believe in all but maybe one case, the families worked with us, and they complied with our request. In the one case, we had a parent who came and picked up the child. The child went remote, if I remember correctly. But our goal is to work with parents to explain what we're doing, why we're doing it, and then ask that they really work with us and comply and settle for, no less. We're trying to keep everybody safe, and that's the way that we plan to continue to move forward this year as well. We did have people last year, who
I have
didn't
a
wear a mask.
follow-up question. Do we have masks available
Yes, we
if a
do.
child comes in without one?
Yes, ma'am. We have masks at all of our buildings. We have a whole supply, a whole stockpile of masks that are available, for children, visitors, parents, whoever needs them. We have them and we give them to them when you come right in the door. Before you really get in, would you like a mask if you don't have one on? And I, again, would say, we've had pretty much everybody has really worked with us and complied, honestly. Especially our children. They've been great. They were really good last year. Okay. Any other questions or things that the board would like to share? Everybody good? All right. So that's where we're at right now. We do have a written plan that we've shared with you. What I'd like to do this week is we're going to be reaching out to some parents at our schools. We want to get some feedback from them and see what they think as well. We'll get their comments and their feedback on our plan, and we have a series of stakeholders that we'll be meeting with. And then, board, when we come back on Tuesday, we'll share with you what they said to us, and if there are any other additional things, we will, and anything you've shared with me tonight, we'll make sure we include it into the plan, and then we'll have our final piece with you on the 24th. And if you're all set on the 24th, on the 25th, we'll put it on our website and make sure that everybody knows, and we'll move from there. That sound good to everybody? I feel very confident that we will be ready at the beginning of the year for a great year. Our staff, our administrators, I believe they'll do a great job. I think we'll be ready, and I do feel that we'll do everything we can to maintain the health and safety of our students.
And
Okay.
I would like to thank you and the leadership team here for the amount of patience that you've had, the time that you've reflected, the people you've called on to bring this to a document where we could look at it, and you've even asked us for input. So thank you.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. Okay. I'm all set. Thank you.
Can I just, one thing, because I know that the summer school ends this week.
Yes.
Thank you to our faculty and staff that gave up their summer to bring our kids somewhat up to par, because they really needed it. So it means a lot to us. We appreciate all of them that were here to do that, and your cabinet and yourself. Thank you.
Thank you much. Appreciate that. Okay. Thank you, board.
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. No. I'll second.
Yep.
Aye.